All dervish teachers employ formulations through which to project their teachings. Taken in isolation, as in the case of people examining things with insufficient information, these procedures, materials, and ideas may seem to be associated with other creeds, and with practices dating from immemorial time, or they may appear to belong to areas which are not, strictly speaking, metaphysical. But since the basic knowledge of the dervishes is often not known to these observers, the reasons for Sufis choosing certain methods, let alone the effectiveness of the methods themselves, remain equally unknown. We may easily distinguish the following as outstanding methods used by dervishes in helping to engender higher states of mind in their pupils. 1. Auditory, visual, and other sense impacts. 2. Verbalized materials, including legends and parables, intended to establish in the mind not a belief, but a pattern, a blueprint which helps it to operate in another manner. 3. Working, worshipping, exercising in unison for the purpose of engendering, liberating, and making flow a certain dynamic, not an emotional or indoctrination one, which furthers the work. 4. The employment of places, objects, symbols, and so on, which are held to supplement ordinary human cognitions, not to train them. 5. The organizing of local and other groups composed of people chosen because of the inherent possibility of their harmonizing in an esoteric community, to encourage the development of something within the community, not a community magnetized around an idea. 6. The selection, from traditional or other formulations, of practices and procedures solely by the criterion of function. Will this work successfully, given a certain type of person in a certain culture? 7. The creation of working communities by selecting locally approved vocational and other groupings, which can also be of use in the dervish work. The introduction of grouping systems which may be lacking in the local culture because they have no psychological appeal or no economic validity. 8. The production of procedures, techniques, and materials which may be used to make contact with the inner aspect of a person's being without disrupting his habitual activities based upon local or temporal conditioning. Dervish operation is therefore a highly skilled and complex endeavor. The major characteristics of well-known dervish schools, dancing, jumping, listening to and playing music and the like, are all popularizations ignorantly imitated from an originally very sophisticated technology, whose expertise is the instant knowledge of the teachers as to which process applies to what circumstances. Once these basic facts are known, two major contentions of the dervishes appear as practical and plausible ones. 1. The unity of all dervishes and of the work becomes more feasible. The seeming contradiction between one path and another is removed. The practice, for instance, of the Naqshbandi sheikhs in initiating disciples into any of the orders becomes comprehensible, even at the intellectual level. The claim as to the bankruptcy of the imitators concentrating upon a few techniques is more clearly understood. 2. The connection between the ancient practical philosophies and the present ones is seen to have been based upon the higher level unity of knowledge, not upon appearances. This explains why the Muslim Rumi has Christian, Zoroastrian, and other disciples, why the great Sufi invisible teacher Khidr is said to be a Jew, why the Mughal prince Darashikoh identified Sufi teachings in the Hindu Vedas, yet himself remained a member of the Qadiri order, how Pythagoras and Solomon can be said to be Sufi teachers. It also explains why Sufis will accept some alchemists to have been Sufis, as well as understanding the underlying developmental factors in Rumi's evolutionary philosophy, or Hallaj's Christianity, why indeed Jesus is said to stand, in a sense, at the head of the Sufis. The importance of this information does not, however, end here. It is essential for any would-be student of Sufism to remember that all formulations, exercises, orders, techniques which he studies outside a Sufi school represent the outward cloak of a current or superseded intensive educational work, which may be presented in one of very many shapes. He cannot, therefore, legitimately decide that such and such a Sufi principle or practice is attractive to him, and hence useful, and another not. Attractive or not, these principles and practices are working frames through which the teaching has been, or is being, projected. In dealing with historical material especially, only imitators, however pious, think that a certain practice is to be recommended just because such and such a teacher employed it. Because of the doctrine of time, place, and people, Sufi exercises are of value. 1. To those attracted to techniques. They are people who seek a mere ordinary psychological stimulus. They are not mystics or metaphysicians, although they often think that they are. 2. For the purpose of information, to familiarize possible pupils with the variety and type of exercise used by dervishes. 3. In developing the capacities of the individual and the group only when correctly prescribed by a Sufi school, which belongs to the culture from which the majority of its adherents belong. In order to benefit from recorded materials, it is absolutely necessary for the reader to examine accounts of Sufi theory and practice with a clear understanding of the foregoing points. The surviving dervish orders were originally set up for the purpose of regularizing and making available to selected candidates the special techniques perfected by the founder of each order. Those orders which are generally known in the East, including the 4 major orders whose materials are studied here, have stabilized their rituals and membership nowadays exclusively on the basis of Eastern culture and the religion of Islam. Teaching in these orders is nowadays limited exclusively to Muslims.